Imagine this. It's the 1400s in Florence. The Renaissance is just getting started. Art is evolving, science is booming, and right in the center of the movement is Filippo Brunelleschi, born in 1377. But plot twist, he didn't even start as an architect. Brunelleschi trained as a goldsmith, so basically he went from making tiny jewelry to building one of the world's largest domes. Super casual. His background helped him because he understood mechanics and detail better than most builders. In 1401, Brunelleschi entered a major competition to design bronze doors for the Florence baptistry and lost to Lorenzo Ghiberti. Instead of giving up, he pivoted hard. Brunelleschi said, "Fine, I'll just revolutionize architecture instead." He traveled to Rome, studied ancient buildings like the Pantheon, and became obsessed with how structures worked. And honestly, he did.
Now for his most famous project, the dome of the Florence Cathedral. The cathedral actually began construction in 1296, but the dome wouldn't be completed until over a century later in 1436. The opening it needed to cover was about 45.5 meters wide, making it the largest dome attempted since the time of ancient Rome. Here was the challenge. Traditional domes, such as ones built in ancient Rome, like the Pantheon, relied on wooden centering, a massive temporary wooden framework that supported the structure while it was being built. Then came Filippo Brunelleschi, with a solution nobody expected. First, he designed a double-shell dome, an inner shell which carried most of the structural weight, and an outer shell which protected the dome and gave it its iconic shape. Between these shells, he created a network of 24 vertical ribs and 6 horizontal stone and wooden chains. These chains acted like tension rings, preventing the dome from spreading outward and collapsing under its own weight, similar to how a metal hoop holds a barrel together. But one of his most brilliant innovations was the herringbone brick pattern. Instead of laying bricks in straight horizontal rows, he arranged them in a zigzag pattern. This redirected the weight inward and downward, locking the bricks into place and preventing them from sliding as the dome rose higher. Many historians speculate that this pattern was inspired not just by ancient Romans, but also Islamic architecture. There is a gap from 1401 to 1416 where historians have no clue on his whereabouts. Some historians think he was studying domes in Rome, while others believe there's a possibility he went to Turkey to study Islamic designs. Even more impressive, the dome was built without full scaffolding. As construction went up, each layer supported the next, meaning the structure was essentially stabilizing itself in real time. Brunelleschi also had to invent custom machinery to make this possible, which will be talked about later. Construction for the dome began in 1420 and was completed in 1436, taking just 16 years. To put it simply, Brunelleschi built a massive dome without traditional support, using techniques no one had seen before, and it didn't collapse. In fact, it still stands today as the largest masonry dome ever built.
Now, here's something you might not expect. Brunelleschi also changed the course of art forever. He is credited with revolutionizing linear perspective, a system that enables artists to depict realistic depth on a flat surface. This method basically allows artists to create the illusion of depth on a flat surface. Before this, paintings looked pretty flat, and symbolic figures didn't really exist in a believable space. So, what did Brunelleschi do differently? He figured out that you could organize a painting around a single point in the distance, called a vanishing point, where all the lines come together. It's actually how our eyes naturally see the world. Things get smaller the farther away they are. What about after Brunelleschi? Artists could create spaces that actually looked real. You can see this clearly in Masaccio's The Holy Trinity. In this painting, all the architectural lines guide your eye straight back to a single vanishing point at eye level. It creates this illusion of a deep, three-dimensional chapel inside a white wall. And when you stand in front of it, it almost feels like you're looking into an actual space rather than a painting. The figures aren't just symbolic anymore. They exist within a structured, believable environment, which makes the whole scene feel more real and more powerful. Essentially, Brunelleschi transformed mathematics into art. This is very much in keeping with the Renaissance spirit of combining science, observation, and creativity.
Another major work by Brunelleschi is the Ospedale degli Innocenti, began in 1419. This building served as an orphanage for abandoned children, funded by the Florence Silk Guild. Architecturally, it represents one of the first true examples of Renaissance architecture. Here's what makes it important. Instead of making it dark and gloomy, he designed it with balance, harmony, and proportion. The facade is based on a modular system, where each section is proportioned like a cube. The loggia features 9 semicircular arches, each about 5.8 meters wide. The structure uses pietra senna, which is gray stone, against white plaster, emphasizing clarity and geometry. Columns are inspired by classical Roman design, especially Corinthian capitals. This was a major shift away from Gothic architecture, which was more decorative and complex. Instead, Brunelleschi focused on balance, proportion, and harmony. The building used clean lines, arches, and columns, again inspired by ancient Rome, and each section is based on a perfect cube, because, of course, Brunelleschi used math. But more importantly, it reflects humanist values, the Renaissance idea that people, including children in need, deserve dignity and care. Even today, it functions as a museum and child services center, showing its lasting impact.
Of course, designing the dome was only half the challenge. Actually building it required new technology. So, Brunelleschi invented machines that had never existed before. One of his most important inventions was an ox-powered hoisting machine. Here's what made it special. It had a 3-speed gear system, it could reverse directions without stopping the oxen, and workers didn't have to dismantle and reset the machine every time they wanted to lower the materials. That might sound simple today, but at the time, it was groundbreaking engineering. He also designed a rotating crane, sometimes called the castello, which could lift heavy materials vertically, and it could rotate horizontally to place them precisely. This made it possible to build the dome at extreme heights, over 50 meters above the ground. These machines were so advanced that later figures like Leonardo da Vinci studied and sketched similar designs. Even though the original machines don't survive, we know about them from detailed descriptions by Renaissance writers like Antonio Manetti. So Brunelleschi wasn't just solving architectural problems, he was basically inventing early mechanical engineering.
Just remember this. Brunelleschi was able to solve impossible engineering problems,
Invent cool machines,
and completely change the way we see and create art.
science,
And creativity.